Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I wanted to make a video about Big Bad Onslaught and how you guys are going to take him down when he is the defender. He is great champion offensively, great champion defensively, but the nice thing about Onslaught is you don't need a special counter to him. So with him coming to the featured 6-star crystal, I think in a little over a week, you're going to be seeing a lot more of Onslaught, both in like Alliance Wars and Battlegrounds. So get ready to fight him more. So what makes Onslaught, a difficult defender? Well, number one, he can go unblockable quite frequently. He has reverse controls on his special 2. There's lots of debuffs he's immune to. He can reduce your ability accuracy. He can put effects through block on you. He can, you can't parry him at all. So he can be a very tricky defender if you don't know what you're doing. But basically, there are 4 classes of champions I would not use against Onslaught. You do not want to use metal champions. You do not want to use champions that rely on bleed, shock, incinerate, plasma, or cold snap. You do not want to use champions that do critical hits a lot, and you do not want to use champions that purify debuffs a lot. If you stick to one of those other classes of champions, you're going to be just fine against Onslaught. So, a couple things you need to know about Onslaught. Every time you parry or he parries, he's going to put a daunted debuff on you, which increases his special attacks. So you do not want to parry him ever, even if you have a champion that can parry non-contact hits, don't do it. You should know that every 10 hits in your combo meter, he is going to go unblockable. Well, he's actually going to get a crush passive, and then the first time that he attacks, then it converts to a crush debuff, and he's going to go unblockable. You should know the neuroshocks. Every hit he does into you, or every hit you do into him, you have a 15% chance to get a neuroshock placed on you. If you dash back, you can actually purify one of these neuroshock debuffs. So let's kind of see what happens here in some of his abilities. So I'm just showing you that when he parries, we're putting these daunted debuffs, which increases our special attacks. So we did 5, and we're already doing 50% more damage on our special attacks there. That happens when you try to parry Onslaught as well. So here I'm just showing that when you hit into the defender, there's a 15% chance you're going to get one of those neuroshock passives on the defender. This also happens when the defender hits into you. So when you're fighting Onslaught, every time you hit him, there's a 15% chance you're going to get that neuroshock passive. And there's no champions in the game that I'm aware of that are immune to neuroshock. So you're going to have to be dealing with it. So typically, smaller 2-3, hit combos are better than 5-hit combos. So that way, if you do get a neuroshock on you, you can dash back and purify it, as opposed to building up a bunch at once and potentially taking a lot of passive damage over time. So the other thing I'm just showcasing here is I just want to show that when Winter Soldier's combo meter passes above 10, right there, we had the stun debuff, so it reduced our ability accuracy a little bit. And he did the special attacks, so that does that. So right there. So now we crossed over, we get the crush passive. As soon as I attack, that converts to a crush debuff on Winter Soldier. Right there, boom. So now I'm unblockable while that crush debuff is active the whole time. So I forgot to kind of mention that if you throw a special attack when you cross over 10 or 20, 30, 40, that does take care of that crush passive and he won't go unblockable. That's what happened there earlier. So there you can see I threw the special one a little bit earlier in the fight, and we got that organic magnetism debuff. That will reduce your ability accuracy by 20% and your combat power rate by 20%. That applies whether Onslaught hits you with a special 1, or that applies if right here he hits you with that special 1 through the block. And it builds up a ton of neuroshocks. So if you really want to fight Onslaught effectively, learn how to dex his special 1. So here I'm just showcasing Angela. She can parry non-contact hits, but every time we're doing that, we're getting a daunted debuff on us. So it's building up his special attack damage. The other thing, Angela is a metal champion, so every time I dash back, we are not purifying one of those neuroshocks. And again, that just increases our passive damage over time that we're going to take in this fight. So you really don't want to use a metal champion because it doesn't allow you to get rid of any neuroshock debuffs at all. The other thing I think I'm going to show at the end of this fight, he's going to throw a special 2. Any neuroshocks right there, boom, get converted to degeneration passives. So you really don't ever want to push onslaught to a special 2. So here we have Hit Monkey. Hit Monkey's not good because he does a ton of critical hits. Critical hits increase the chances that we get neuroshocks placed on us. So you can see we already built up to 4 or 5 neuroshocks in this fight. So it's really best not to use champions that do critical hits a lot. The other thing you can see, the bleed debuff from Hit Monkey doesn't do any damage to Onslaught because he has 150% resistance to bleed. So he is just healing from that bleed debuff. So that happens with Incinerate, Shock, or Bleed. You don't want to use champions that rely on those debuffs because he will not take any damage from them. And then if you're fighting him in like Battlegrounds or Alliance War, he's just going to regenerate from those. So kind of this last one kind of shows you what happens when you have a Bleed, Incinerate, Shock, Plasma, or Cold Snap on Onslaught. Basically, while those debuffs are on Onslaught, he is just going to keep adding neuroshocks to you passively even when you don't hit him like every 2 seconds. So that's another reason not to use a champion that relies on those effects, because he won't take damage and you're just going to get more passive neuroshocks built up over time. Now, he will take damage from Cold Snap and Plasma, but again, you're just increasing the passive damage over time you're going to take through those neuroshocks. So, Kate Bishop, yeah, she can do the fight with her Cold Snap, but you're going to take a lot of passive damage over time. You're going to lose some health, and, in high tier battlegrounds, you're not going to win the fight because you lost all that health through that passive damage. So try not to use a champion that relies on those effects at all. So here's probably the best counter to Onslaught if you don't know. It's Havoc. Havoc is such an easy counter to Onslaught. Basically, the strategy with Havoc is just build up to a special 1 for Onslaught, take that special 1 to your block, and he's going to build up a ton of neuroshocks on Havoc. Well, those neuroshocks are energy damage. They're not going to do a ton of damage to us. And when we have energy damage, we're just able to build up all those plasma detonations very quickly. So he can die very quickly without us even hitting him. So Havoc is a great counter to Onslaught. The other best counter to Onslaught is Ironheart. Ironheart basically counters everything Onslaught does except his neuroshocks. So I can't put Ironheart's pre-fight into Ruptures here. So imagine this fight without Incinerates. But basically, once you build up to 5 Rupture debuffs on Onslaught, we can parry his non-contact hits. We can block his unblockable attacks, his special attacks anyways. We have 100% reduced offensive block, ability. So like when he hits his special 1, all those effects shouldn't apply to us. She's immune to reverse controls on the special 2. So she can counter a lot of what he does and is a great counter. And I believe she's coming to this featured 6-star. So if you get a chance to get her, get her. So here's a general strategy you can use against Onslaught. Let him hit into your block and then wait till he does a heavy attack and counter his heavy attack. So boom, you can counter with your own heavy. You can counter with a 5-hit combo, whatever you want. But with Tigra, when you counter his heavy with your heavy, you build up a lot of ruptured debuffs on him and power gain as well. So, this is just the general strategy you want to use pretty much with every champion, is either intercept him or, let him hit into your block and then bait out his heavy and counter with, an attack of your own. So another great champion, well, actually, I just wanted to show, with Shang-Chi here against Onslaught, that you can pretty much use any champion against Havoc. It doesn't really matter. You just have to learn to counter his special 1 and by dexing it all. And, you're golden. Like, literally, you're golden. So here, we're just dexing that 5-hit combo with Shang-Chi. Look at that. We didn't put any neuroshocks on us. No organic magnetism debuffs. The only thing with Shang-Chi you should be aware of is do not put those purify up. Because you put those purifies up and you purify any of his debuffs, they get applied as passives, I believe, at a higher potency than when they are debuffs. So Shang-Chi works great. Just, don't put those purifies up. The other downside with Shang-Chi is when he does his special 2, all those are critical hits in his special 2. All those are going to put neuroshocks, as you can see there. So just make sure if you use the special 2 that you're going to finish onslaught. But, even Shang-Chi can work against onslaught. Another great counter to onslaught is everyone's favorite archangel. He's not going to take any damage from the bleeds or the poisons, but they still get applied to onslaught. So basically all you have to do is let him hit into your block, counter his heavy with your heavy, build up the bleeds. He's not going to get any poisons by hitting into you because he has non-contact hits. So just fire the special 1 to get those poisons, let him hit into your block, bait out a heavy, counter with your heavy, boom, we got the neuroshocks. Now we're going to reduce his ability accuracy and do some good damage over time. So I think once people figure out, you can use Archangel quite well against Havoc, that he's not going to be as scary a defender as people think he is. Because right now, Onslaught is by far the #1 champion in my Battlegrounds deck that people ban. But once they learn you can literally use any champion against him, I don't think it's that scary. So hope that helped, guys. And if you see or have another defender you want me to talk about, comment in the comment section down below and let me know. Thanks, guys.